All right, guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Relationship Schools podcast, where we teach you how to be a smart human being, a smart couple, and we help you get what you want in long-term relationships. That's what we're about here. That's how we roll. So we've got 250 plus episodes for you to devour if you're new. So welcome. Go back and listen. If you're here again, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing with a friend. Thanks for your reviews on iTunes. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Google Play or even Spotify now, right? That's where we hang and where you can download these. It's all on your phone, okay? Just make it easy. Just have it text you when a new episode comes out. That's the easiest way to deal with this. All right. In this episode, I've got an entrepreneur friend of mine named Matt Brauning, and he's an NLP expert, teacher. If you're not sure what NLP is or means, stay tuned. It's basically a coaching technique to help people break through their problems, challenges, and help them empower their lives. It's actually quite fascinating. I've never formally trained in NLP, but I've been around a lot of NLP people over the years. And this was a great interview because I learned a ton. And I got coached by Matt on my fear of public speaking. Believe it or not, I have fears before I get on stage to speak or do my spoken word poetry. I get scared. I just have this fucking old reaction. It's like, ugh. I've worked on it quite a bit, and Matt coached me here, and it was really cool to see how he worked with me. I always like getting coached by different people because it's fascinating. It's just like, whoa, okay, they did something I normally wouldn't do or didn't know how to do. And I learned from the inside. So in this episode, we talk a lot about addiction, NLP primarily. We talk about how to help you change your patterns in the moment. So if you get a text from someone and you're reacting, we talk about Matt coaches us on how to slow down and rewire yourself to respond differently the next time. Yeah, it was cool. I'm going to try this and I'm going to see what happens. So I think you're going to get a lot out of this. Plus, it's fun to hear Matt's personal story, drug addiction, getting involved in God, and so many other things. Okay, he's a husband and a father, and I think you're going to dig this. So let's get right into it with Mr. Matt Brauning. All right, welcome, Matt Brauning. What's up?
Hey, how are you, Jason? So glad to be here, man. I'm excited because relationships are one of my favorite and most important things in the world. So I'm ready.
Awesome. You're in the right place, and I'm really thrilled to have you on because you've got some really Jedi skills when it comes to kind of helping people through relationship challenges. So I want to get into that today.
I'm ready. I'm as ready as I can be. I've been doing this for 15 years in the world of neuro-linguistic programming. But a guy like you who's so deep in relationships, and this is your Jedi world. It was fun having you on my podcast when you're on The Driven Entrepreneur, and I think it's going to be a blast to kind of continue our conversation on how we meet our minds, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So give us a little bio, just so we can understand. So where do you live? Married, not married, divorced, kids, no kids, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I grew up my whole life, 39 years in Orange County, California, and we moved a year ago to Grand Rapids, Michigan. We moved for the weather because it does change and it's really nice. But we also have a ton of church family and friends out here. So my wife and I are really heavily involved, not just in our business life and play, but also in ministry work. So we volunteer a ton out here. I have an 8-year-old son named Valiant. He goes by Val. Not a big fan of the hippie name, but he goes by Val. And he's an amazing kid, introverted, yet loves people and performs as long as no one's looking.
Oh yeah.
He's gonna be a great producer one day.
All right, cool. And how did you get into NLP? First, let's define NLP. So, because we're going to talk a lot about how NLP type techniques can help us in our relationship. So what is NLP and how did you get into that?
So the easiest way to think about it, it's called Neuro-linguistic programming. It's been around since the early 70s. Some people call it a science. I don't think that's really an accurate way to say it. It's much more like a methodology, a psychology, even a way that we filter the things around us. So my favorite definition of NLP is the lost user manual for the mind. Mm-hmm. You can think about it as, we know as parents, all right, we're not born with these manuals with our kids, and Same for us though, right? When we were born, we don't know how this thing really works. Another definition for NLP is the study of subjective experience. So why does one person take something one way and someone else takes it another way? Objectively, I could say, hey, you have a microphone in front of you, and I'd agree to that, and you'd agree to that.
Yep.
So that's objective. Subjective, real simply, is how do you see that microphone, or how do I see it? Right? To one person, it might be expensive. To another, it's cheap. It might be in the way, or it might be helpful. It might be silver, or it might be gray. It might be big, it might be small. All of those are contingent or subject to how I interact with what's in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is, to me, the most important study in the world, understanding how our minds work and how we deal with the environments around us. It filters into business, it filters into relationships, it filters into the language and words we choose, and truly like the reality we create around us. I got into it because I was in real estate and I was watching Tony Robbins on stage one day. My boss had taken a bunch of us to one of his seminars, and most people couldn't really care less. They were like, motivational guy. But I was rapt. I was sitting there just thinking, how does he do this? Because I was watching him take people who were, having deep relational conflicts or depression or phobias, just these kind of things that most people feel like stay permanent and they're a permanent part of them and they struggle with. And I watched those things change and disappear really fast, like in minutes. And I've seen videos and now, of course, my own clients for the last decade and a half watching that it doesn't come back. Like, I don't know how many phobias I've helped people get rid of. I don't cure anything, certainly. I'm not licensed to do that. But I've seen a lot of phobias miraculously disappear after we did a session. And it's just kind of flipping the old script upside down, looking at how do our brains really work? Why do we do what we do? And then if you can recognize that pattern, let's go in and make a change. Let's go intervene if it's not working for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. I'm excited to get into some examples here and let's do this,
Let's do it.
And so before Tony Robbins, let me just back up a couple steps. You're into real estate. Prior to that, was there any part of you that was in pain or going through personal growth or I'm just so curious because, so many people find kind of a personal growth path because something's not working in their life. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I have a kind of bizarre backwards personal growth story. So in high school, I got into drinking and then drugs, and I got kicked out of 2 high schools. I went to my 3rd one in handcuffs, a continuation school, if you know what that is, where basically if you're behind on credits or ditching school or getting caught for drug use, a lot of people that come to my seminars, they might relate having a teenager that has gone to continuation school.
Yeah.
So that was my 3rd high school. And right before I turned 17, I had this weird just epiphany. I can't tell you why. I really can't. I woke up one day and I went out to do my natural habit, which was jumping out my bedroom window, getting high, and then I was going to go on to school. And it was the first time I remember thinking, I don't want to do this, but I also don't know how to stop. I don't want to do it, but I just keep on doing it. And I was never into personal development of any kind as a kid. But the next day, I got clean and sober and I stopped everything. And I had stayed completely sober of any substance whatsoever for 7, almost 8 years. Now, I believe I have a whole nother story about that. My first book is called Total Freedom from Addictions that I wrote in 2007. And the concept is simply hey, this isn't maybe a permanent disease. This is something that there's biological aspects, there's psychological aspects, there's emotional aspects. But at the end of the day, there is always a choice of how to behave. And it might be really hard to change choices, but at the end of the day, it always is a choice, no matter what it is. So I walked through this period of time realizing that maybe it's not what I thought it was, so I wouldn't call myself an addict. I would say I had a lot of addictive behavior at a period of time. And I'm also happy to report that that after I started going to meetings, a lot of meetings, all those 12-step meetings.
Yep.
And that was my first avenue into personal growth. So I'm 17 years old, going before high school in my senior year and in my junior year, going to AA meetings at 7 a.m. in the morning with a bunch of 60-year-old men talking about, living a new life. And so that was the first time I started looking into, well, who am I and what have I done and how did it create and all that kind of stuff that we maybe do in a personal growth seminar today.
Yeah.
And I stayed with that. And then I met these brothers in the real estate business and I started mentoring with them, Joe and Ed. Shout out to Joe and Ed Sweeney. changed my life, man. At 18, they showed me how to build credit, how to buy houses. I started my own business at 22. By 25, I'm a self-made millionaire. I bought 10 different homes and investment properties, and I'm running my own business for 3 years. I couldn't imagine doing that because I'm not that smart of a guy. Like, I'm just not, but I follow patterns, and I learned in the real estate business to follow what other people have done that works. And when I saw Tony on stage, that was the next time. So I kind of, if the story makes sense, I crashed and burned in high school. I pulled myself up by the bootstraps and got sober and figured things out and began succeeding in the financial world, at least.
Yeah.
But by 25, 26, I had another problem, and I started feeling a little empty. Like I didn't know what was missing. I was like, I got new Mercedes, and I have a house on the hill, and whatever, all the stuff that we think we want, right?
Yeah.
But inside, I didn't. The real problem was I just don't feel like I'm making a difference. I don't feel like my existence, I guess, actually matters. You know, like sure, I'm helping a family get into a home, but what am I really doing? And that was my own personal crisis. And that's when I started going back into seminars. I started doing retreats and getting every book, every tape I could. I saw Tony again on stage, and I learned that what was behind him was neuro-linguistic programming. So then I jumped into every training and certification course I could do, and bought I got a bookshelf full of NLP books, and the rest is history. That was 15 years ago.
Wow, that's so cool. And man, it's neat to hear your story because I also went through a phase of heavy drug use and somehow found my way out of that, but barely. And so thanks for you're here. You survived that time and grew from it. Right?
It's a miracle any of us are here.
Yeah, it's incredible. And do you help people with addictions? Is that one of many things you do? Is that not something that you do? Because it's kind of, for some people, that's really tough to work with.
You know, it is. So for years, I did do that. I currently don't do that work. But I spent a lot of years in the beginning doing addictive recovery change. Now I have practitioners that I would refer somebody to that are phenomenal. Heck, I'll even shout out to Sue Mandel if you find her on social media somewhere, her website. One of my practitioners and colleagues who at 30 years sober and works with addictive behaviors and does a great job. It is all based on the same theories and the same belief structure that I would have in the book. But yeah, so I don't use that as much. The only time I ever get into the book or that kind of subject is maybe if I get invited to speak at a high school or a college. Sometimes they want me to talk about that, and I'm always happy to, but that's not what I actively work with every day.
Yeah, got it. And you said something really profound there around choice. Everything's a choice. Can you unpack that a little more? Because some of the listeners, we all go through these moments of feeling like a victim, like something's happening to us, and we can't extract ourselves from the painful relationship dynamic, let's say. Can you help us kind of get this concept of everything's a choice, especially in a relationship that's not good?
So let's start with this. So let me correct that statement that I said.
Yeah.
Everything isn't a choice, but everything that I do, say, and react to is a choice. So, and it's really important to understand because I've been teaching on this concept of cause versus effect that you're probably familiar with for a really long time. I'm sure most coaches, practitioners, therapists, when those are listening, that's a big thing, right? It's hero versus victim. It's, do I make things happen or do they happen to me? And I struggled for years to teach this in the right way. And here's what I mean. So let's say somebody comes to a workshop or to do a session, and they go, well, I have childhood sexual abuse. That's a big thing, and that's a heavy thing. And sometimes people will walk away misunderstanding cause and effect and choice, thinking, well, that must mean that at some level I chose this. And I want to be crystal clear, that's a lie. That's not true. I don't believe that for a second. Some people teach it that way. I don't believe it all. I don't even believe it as some angel spirit you chose to have this negative experience. I think that is a crock. But that's just me. And sorry if that's...
Yeah, that's great. Keep going.
Because what I believe it means, though, is when we think that at some point we have a hand in that negativity coming to us, there's always, it's good to take cause for things, but I don't believe it's always positive, nor does it work every time to take cause for the negativity around us. So, I don't want a 6-year-old child, someone going back saying, well, when I was 6, I got abused, so I must have somehow created that. So I'd say, don't believe that. But from the moment those events happened, after that, even at 6, you might not have the coping skills, and you shouldn't, because this is horrendous, environments to be in. So no one would expect you to. At the same time, there's only one person's responsibility at the end of your life to choose how to react and what to do with it. So what you don't want to be is that person who's 50 looking back and saying, well, my life is a mess, or I have 4 divorces and bad relationships, and my kids don't talk to me, and they can't hold a job. And the reason that my life is this way is because of him or because of her. That's where we choose. Does that make sense? Like, I have to choose.
Yeah, totally.
When someone insults me, I choose how I respond. And sometimes our choices feel automatic. And that's where, we get into debates. Well, it's not a choice. That's just how I feel. I know it is. But you can also stop and choose that even though I feel this way, I'm still going to choose a different behavior. Or even though I feel this way, I feel anxious, or I feel scared, or I feel angry, I can still stop, slow down, and choose to at least focus on making a change. Might be harder, might be easier. Sometimes it's instant, sometimes it takes years, but you can always make a choice of what you're going to do next. Yeah. I think I would leave it at that, is the choices are really not about the past, but about the future.
Yeah, great. So let's say I'm that guy that's 50, and this happened to me when I was 6. It's been a hard life, and I tend to blame that time period or my childhood or my parents. And let's say you're starting to work with me doing some NLP. How does NLP get in there in terms of changing my beliefs or thought patterns, or how might I start to see that differently?
Man, the first place where NLP begins to work, I said earlier, it's more of a frame of reference. It's a filter, like a set of sunglasses that we wear to see the world. Yeah. And NLP practitioners are going to have a very different filter than most traditional therapy. And I'm always very careful. I have a lot of therapists, counselors, coaches from all backgrounds that have attended my workshops, seminars, and listened to podcasts. So I realize that I'm generalizing, traditional therapy or old school therapy. I know that a lot of methods have changed over the years, but in a very broad sense, the traditional general psychology principles really originated. Freud made them real popular. Carl Jung made it real popular, and many others. To me, a lot of it originated from the Industrial Revolution. The first time in history that we look back and we saw assembly lines, and we saw machinery, and we saw excellence in productivity. The great thing is, for machines, like the interchangeable part with a car, with a rifle, right? If the trigger mechanism broke, now you can take the trigger mechanism out, you put a new one in, bam, you replace the part, and the machinery is whole. It works great for machines. It works great for houses. It works great for just about everything. It doesn't work that well with humans. But traditional psychology, and I'm going back to the late 1800s and on for at least 100 years, that some people still practice, really see people like that. And the idea is, I'm a whole person, except I have this problem. And if I didn't have this problem, I'd function correctly. So what do we do in therapy? We usually sit down and we attempt to solve that problem. Makes perfect sense for a car. It's a diagnosis. Yeah. And then you either have the medicine, or you have the surgery, or you have the consecutive counseling sessions. And at the end of it, hopefully you fix the problem. And if the problem's gone, the person is whole again.
Right. I'd call that like Western medicine, but yes.
Totally. Yeah. Right. Cool. And you see it everywhere. Yeah. You see it in hospitals and so forth.
And very useful in some settings, right?
Very useful in some settings. So certain cases well, I won't even get into that, but you get the idea, right? Yeah. Oh, if I broke my leg, that's a great example. Yeah. I was whole. I had all my bones intact. I broke my leg. Let's fix the broken leg. Let's let that heal, and then I'll be back to whole again. Great example, but it doesn't work everywhere because of the holistic nature of the body, the mind, the spirit, the emotions, etc. So in the NLP field, it's not about seeing the holistic view. It's really about seeing the person as a whole evolving event. So like Bucky Fuller said it best. He's one of the geniuses who mentored with Einstein, came up with the geodesic dome, the golf ball shaped engineering structure, and so many other amazing things. I love Bucky Fuller. I actually have him. Do I? Oh no, I'm about to. I'm gonna tattoo him right here.
Nice.
I have a John Muir. I have Leonardo da Vinci in my little. If you're watching this, you can see it's on my arm. That's an Einstein equation that he messed up. And right here, I'm going to put Bucky Fuller's map of the world, which showed the map as one land and one ocean. Very different concept of seeing the world. Anyways, Bucky Fuller used to always famously say, I am an evolutionary event. And I love that term because it means that I'm not my static identity of me at this age right now. See, most of us psychologically, if we think about it, I hope this is okay. We're going to kind of go
Oh, yeah.
a little deep, maybe.
Bring it.
But I think most people look at ourselves as static identity of today built on the past. So we look into the timeline of the past, and I'm 39 today as we speak right now. So for 39 years, these things have happened, and that's made me who I am today. But the truth is, I'm an evolutionary event. That means I'm always evolving, changing, and this is just a snapshot on a longer timeline that'll go from birth to however long I'll be around here for. So I'm just a snapshot in time, and I'll be different tomorrow. So in the NLP field, really what I teach people to look at is the evolutionary event of a person. Every individual is constantly evolving, and the word I use is adapting. We're always adapting to situations. So the 6-year-old who was abused, and I hate that, that metaphor or that story, but it is very real, and
real.
many people relate to it. So I'm going to keep using it.
Yep.
A 6-year-old who was physically abused, the Western world or the psychology and so forth is going to say something like, well, this thing happened there, and now that's what caused this person to behave this way today. So if we can go back into the past and we can drudge up the memories and we can work it through and he can make new decisions and so forth, now the person can be fixed. What I say is at 6, that young human adapted and found new strategies to adapt to the environment he was in. Mm-hmm. So maybe, some people adapted by getting angry. Some people adapted by being shy and hiding. That was what I did, right? Yeah. So I wasn't physically abused, but I went, it was a pretty angry, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop sort of scenario in my house growing up. And when my dad would be really angry early on, and I always like to preface, in case he listens, I love you, Dad. We have a great relationship today. He's made massive changes, as have I. Early on in our life, man, it was like I didn't know when he was going to blow up next, and it scared me. So the way I adapted is I'm going to put my head in the sand. So I'd go back to my room, I'd shut the door, and I'd hide, and hopefully the storm would pass.
Yep.
So how does that show up today? Well, my wife and I, we've worked through this for years, right? We're coming up on 10 years married, 11 years together. And, when there's conflict, and she'll usually start to get a little more, I'll say passionate, because that's what she learned to adapt, right? If you're getting conflicted, let's get passionate. What I learned is let's do the opposite. So, hey, if this is getting passionate, I start seeing my dad being angry and I'm like, nope, I'm out of here. You let me know when you're done. Yeah. I'm going to go over here. So I would bury. Now, does that mean I'm broken? No, it's just how I adapted the situation. So in the NLP world, I just see people as constant series of adaptions. And if many of your adaptions work for you, they work great.
Absolutely.
Right? I have another one called humor. I diffuse heavy situations with humor. Yeah. So I'm always cracking jokes. I'm super sarcastic. If you know me at any level like that, that's who I am. And that's something I also learned from the heavy situations at home. My brother getting in trouble, my parents fighting, whatever it was. So I love that I adapted humor because it serves me really well today. And I don't want to get rid of that. I'm not going to go to therapy to be less funny.
Yeah.
Right? Yep. So the adaptions that are positive, we call character traits. The adaptions that are negative, we call problems and traumas. So in the NLP world, it's not about getting rid of the bad stuff. It's about looking at all the adaptions and saying, well, how can we use these adaptions? Mm-hmm. Do we want to keep this one? Do we not want to keep this one? Is this one actually useful versus not? And so forth.
Yeah, that's great. Really nicely said. So I get it. Sounds like we're not pathologizing in NLP. You're not going to pathologize a person who, the 50-year-old man, let's say, who now has developed some coping strategies. Let's say he avoids loud people in certain environments, and there's strengths in that, right? So his strategies are also strengths. Yeah?
Yes. Even like I would say the struggle is your strength. What you walk through and struggle with can be very strong. I'll give you just one real clear example. There's a young girl I worked with years ago that was so stubborn and refused to listen to her parents and just wanted it her way. And again, any parent listening can relate to maybe a 12-year-old girl and they act like that. And you're like, this is a problem, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they came, and one of the other things I do often in an NLP session is I want people to understand that every one of these traits and character attributes are not positive or negative by nature. they're only useful or not useful contextually, meaning like in a certain situation, in a certain when or a where or a with whom. So when is stubbornness not useful? Well, when you're 12 years old and you won't listen to a thing your parents say, right? And that's not useful with your parents at home for them to get your chores done.
Yep.
So I just looked at the parents and they're like, can you fix our daughter? You know, she's too stubborn. She won't listen. And I looked at the daughter. She was very sweet. I looked at the parents, looked at the daughter, looked back at the dad and said, won't that serve her well when she begins to date in just a few years? That stubbornness. And I waited, and with about a few seconds, this strange look comes over his face. Then he's like, you know what? Never mind. We're fine. Because that same stubbornness that doesn't work in a family dynamic with a teenager was going to serve her well when she gets off on her own as a teenager or goes to college, right? And dad wants her to be stubborn with her values and her morals and her choices, especially around maybe young boys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the idea of like, no matter what you think this is, oh, I'm introverted. Oh, is that a problem? Well, only if a bunch of extroverts tell you it is.
Yeah.
Introverted is a phenomenal skill set that you can recharge and you can feel great on your own and then get back out and love people. So it's about leaning into these character strengths and finding a great context where they work.
Yeah.
And there's a few that just don't really help us at all.
Yeah, for sure.
They serve a purpose, but ultimately the consequence is too negative, like maybe a phobia. It serves a positive purpose. If I'm phobically scared of snakes, the purpose is it keeps me safe. That's positive.
Yeah.
The problem is, though, I don't need to jump up and down and scream my head off and freak out if I see a snake. That actually might be counterintuitive. It might freak out the snake. What if the snake has a human phobia? Now they're freaking out and I'm freaking out, and then all of a sudden you're more likely to get bit. So with things like a phobia, it would be better to resolve and change the adaptation, have a different response. It's not about taking it away. Yep. It's about changing it. I don't want to be phobic anymore. Instead, I want to be curious maybe.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm getting the distinction between kind of traditional psychology, let's say Western medicine-ish approach, where we got a problem, we got to fix it, and we got to kind of label it and put it out, put the fire out. With NLP, I'm hearing, okay, let's use these strategies that are strengths to our advantage. And let's get go a little deeper with an example, whether it's the woman you just talked about or the 50-year-old guy. How can we change our mind about, let's say the strategy has become problematic in our life. It's actually it's holding us back. How can I work with that in myself? I'm trying to think of an example. But you know what I'm asking is like, it's holding me back now.
Yeah. How do you actually change a pattern?
Yeah. How do you change a pattern?
The first place to start is changing the questions we ask. So again, back to the traditional psychology, you might ask questions like, why? It's one of the biggest questions that you get. Why do you think that is?
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? Right? Who did that to you? When did it start? Why? There's a lot of whys.
Sure.
In the NLP world, I don't even get into the why because that leads usually to story, and story leads to understanding. But here's one of the flaws in thinking. Understanding does not necessarily bring change. I mean, think about it. Have you ever known something was bad for you, but still chose to do it anyway?
I'm sure.
You know, everybody who smokes every day, you know, I don't know any smoker who goes, wait a minute, these are bad? What are you talking about? Right?
Yeah.
It's like, so just because we understand why, or we know it's bad, doesn't mean we'll change. So NLP doesn't get into the why, we more get into the how. My question is, how do you do that pattern inside your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind? How is it you do that phobia? And that's where neuro-linguistic comes from. Neuro for the mind, linguistic for language. It's really about studying the language of the mind. And the mind, how we do processes and things, is different than just our words. All right, like my language with you, I'm trying to get across the pictures in my head through these simple, archaic words. Okay. But the mind thinks in pictures, sounds, feelings, touches, smells, tastes, and certain language that's in my mind. I have all that together, you know. And then I try to explain it in this language thing. So many of the NLP techniques are going to get into, okay, you know, close your eyes and, you know, imagine going through this phobia or the first time. And please don't do this if you're listening, because I'm not actually doing the technique. So I don't want to, right? Okay. That would not be good.
Okay.
But just as a general example, it would be a process like close your eyes, and it's not imagination, but yet it is. Einstein said it best when he said, all your problems are problems of your imagination. And therefore, all your solutions are solutions of your imagination. So if the problems are how we imagine things in my mind, like being broke isn't a problem. It's not a problem for millions of people around the world. They eat, they spend time with their families, they love their children. We used to do a retreat in Fiji every year. And a lot of the families we spent time with and hang out with, they have everything they want. They're very happy, but they have very little money. So it's not a problem of how much money is in your bank account. It's a problem of how do you feel about it? It's a problem of I want a certain thing that's expensive, but I can't have it, that sort of thing. So everything at some point is wrapped in the mind. There's dozens and dozens of NLP techniques, and we teach them at live workshops and certification courses. There's home studies. You can get books on NLP. I run live seminars, of course, all throughout the year and whatnot. When you come to an online study course, you'll begin to learn the different NLP techniques. Several of them are going to be about what I would call strategic intervention. You're intervening at a pattern before the pattern has become a problem. So for instance, if you're phobic of snakes, there's a certain point in your life, like if I'm phobic of snakes, right now, I don't feel phobic. I'm sitting at my desk with my microphone talking to you.
Yeah.
Now, could I trigger that phobia? At some point, maybe I'll see a snake, boom, and then it gets triggered. And there's a split second, half a second to 2 seconds that I go through this internal process of see the snake, and then I end up feeling internally freaked out, and that's the reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So with an NLP technique, what we want to do is slow it down and break out what the process is. And we do it in relationships with conflict, or we do it with emotions like anxiousness or fear. We do it in the sales process for buying something. There's a moment when you saw a jacket on the rack, and then a few seconds later, you had this internal feeling of like, I'm going to get this. You made a decision that you want to get this jacket, maybe the jacket you have on right now. So what if we broke down those few seconds in between and really dug into the brain and said, unconsciously, what were you doing in the language of your mind? Did you see a picture of the jacket first? And then did you say something to yourself? If you said something to yourself, what did you say? How did you say it? Did you say, oh, I can't afford that? Or did you say to yourself, ooh, I wonder if I could afford that? Right? Was it a positive tone, a negative tone? All these things are really important because they're going to lead to the result of you decided to do that. Yep. And whether it's buying a jacket and feeling good, or feeling anxious and nervous to ask someone out, or being scared of a snake, or feeling passion with your lover, whatever that result is, in the NLP world will break into step by step exactly what happens in the mind.
What's up, podcast fans? Jason here. Quick interruption about the Relationship School's upcoming Deep Psychology of Intimate Relationships. Now, remember, if you are not up for the 9-month training, you can come to our Accepted and Connected weekend experience. It's all about conflict, how to navigate conflict. Okay, it's November 8th, 9th, and 10th. More details coming soon. Save that date. In the meantime, here's Karen, who went through Deeper and the Level 1 Coaches Training. Check out what she had to say.
Well, my relationship with my spouse did shift, but also my relationship with my kids and my ability to stay with them and be with them in their feelings and just allow them to be who they are. And so they're more open to talking and receiving feedback from me. And my relationship with my daughter has really shifted. She went from being a kind of a closed-off teenager, very troubled, and now a few years later, she's just open and she's coming to me, and she felt heard and seen, and I've seen it in the kids. Yeah, I've seen that they're more receptive. Yeah, they feel more seen.
Boom. All you moms and dads out there, take note from Karen. Karen worked really hard and now just sent us an email the other day that her marriage is completely different. Her family, she's super grateful for the Relationship School. So thanks, Karen, for all your hard work. If you want more info, guys, go to relationshipschool.com/DPIR to apply and interview with us. All right, back to Matt. Let's say I'm anxious my partner is going to leave me. And I've been getting some signs, some text messages, and I'm having a moment one day where I'm just really afraid. They sent me a text or they didn't return a text, and I start going into this thing. So you're saying we slow it down and we start looking at what I'm doing, how I'm piecing together a story, and then we start to change how I piece it together. Or?
In a way, think of it like not as much a story, but think of it like, remember those old photo slides that are one slide after another that your uncle, when he went on vacation in the 80s, would show you photo slide.
For sure.
It's almost like breaking down those snapshots and not the story per se, but what's the series of events I do in my mind? So here's your options. You could make pictures in your mind. You could say something to yourself. You could get a feeling or emotion. You could hear something or someone or the voice of someone. You could feel the touch of someone. Inside, I could imagine someone touching me, or I could actually have someone touch me. So let's say we feel anxious about that. The first thing I'd start with before anything is ask, is this relationship worth saving? Before you even get into how do we do it, that's the real question. Because the truth is, if we're not talking about a marriage, let's say we're talking about a dating relationship, that doesn't mean you're going to be with the person forever necessarily, because you haven't made that choice yet. So in a dating relationship, number one question is it worth saving? Is this something we want to stay in and stay with?
Cool.
And if one person says no, the other person says yes, that's a whole nother set of circumstances.
Yeah.
We're not doing an NLP process. Let's say, yes, I want, the person says, yes, I love you and I'm committed and I'm here. But the other person goes, but I'm so scared you're going to leave. I always feel that, right? Intervening at that first level would be a great thing. So I might say, okay, at some point you're sitting around and everything's fine. You don't have any anxious feelings. Everything is fine. And then 5 minutes later, you're like, oh, my heart's beating and I'm scared and I'm worried. Well, what happened in between? How did I create this in my mind? So let's break that down. So maybe the first thing is something usually triggers those feelings and emotions.
I got the text or something.
I got the text and it's a ding. When that text goes off, that's going to trigger what we call in NLP a strategy. And by the way, this is one of the two most important elements in any relationship is understanding and being in control of strategies. That's what we're talking about here. There are recipes in the unconscious mind of how we do what we do. So maybe the first thing when that ding goes off is I get a picture of the person I love, maybe with someone else,
Yeah.
And when I get that picture, then I say to myself, oh, and I make this guttural sound, oh, and that's the sound I hear, right? And then what happens then is I imagine them saying, so what? And they have this me, who cares attitude. And then after that, I get this feeling in my gut about the size of a grapefruit that won't go away, that's just down below my solar plexus, and it just feels heavy and tight. And then once that happens, now you would tell somebody, oh, I feel so anxious. I feel anxiety. I don't feel good. Oh, I'm so worried. I'm scared. But what we just figured out as we go through this process is the person went through 4 distinct stages, probably in a split second.
Yeah.
Or in 2 split seconds.
Yeah. So you're like expanding time there and zooming way in to see what exactly happened.
That's exactly it. And here's the best part. This is just a strategy. It never feels like we're in control of it because these strategies happen so fast.
Yeah.
So the person's like, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not choosing it. It just happens. And that is their experience. It does just happen to them. In the NLP world, let's take control back into what happens to us internally. And let's, like you said, expand, zoom in, break it down. And now we have this 3, 4, 5 steps that actually happened all within a second or two. And you can do changes. So I'll give you an example. Like say that's exactly what we just said.
Yeah.
So I'll have my clients say, okay, now, and let's say we know that nothing's actually going on. Maybe the person's been cheated on 4 times in 4 relationships.
Yep.
And now they're in a loving, caring relationship and it's faithful and amazing, but they still have this old anxiety that's troubling them or old anxiousness, thinking the person's going to cheat, even though there's no real signs. So what do? Well, you find the trigger first. And maybe a text message ding is a trigger.
Yep.
The ding, they go, oh gosh, it's going to be her saying she's leaving me.
Yeah.
So the very first time that trigger happens, now go in and imagine. Instead of imagining her off with someone else, you're going to imagine her smiling at you and reaching out to hold your hand. You might change the content of the picture. That's one level of change you could do. But I wouldn't stop there. You change a bunch of things. One of the coolest things is you can change what I call the qualities of the picture. So you could still have the exact same picture. In fact, I did this with a couple who were married 29 years. There was an affair, a real affair, and they had decided they want to work through it. They want to heal. They want to stay together. Their problem was every time his text message ding went off, she got a feeling in the pit of her stomach that it was going to be her again, even though it was completely ended and done and they were, healthy.
Yeah.
So what we did is, instead of even changing the picture, because it was so hard to change, we changed the qualities of the picture. So ding, she gets an image of him with her, right? With the other woman.
Yeah.
But instead of having that, because I said, well, where is that picture? And she said, well, it's right in front of my face. And how big is it? Oh, it's the whole screen of my mind. And it's in color and it's vivid. So we said, well, let's take that picture and shrink it down. Make it the size of a postage stamp. And I want you to push the picture further away in your mind's eye, all the way down the lower right-hand corner of your mind's eye. And make it black and white. And make it a still frame. And what happened? Just doing that, the moment it went ding, she took the picture and made it tiny. The picture didn't have the same next step trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And even if she tried to do it because she was so used to it, it was autopilot for her. She didn't realize she was doing this, of course, on purpose. It was automatic.
Right.
The next thing she would say is, oh, it's probably her. It's probably her.
Right.
And she'd be, with
She's
malice.
Contempt.
And yes, contempt. So we'd say, well, let's change that, and say, oh, it's not her. It's not her. And you change. It's funny because it doesn't matter what you change it as long as you change it. Because when you make a change, it's like when you're driving somewhere, if you make another turn and then you make another turn and you change a third turn off route, eventually, no matter how hard and how bad you want to get to that original destination, you won't be able to find your way.
Yeah.
And these strategies are the same thing. When you change one thing, then you change your tonality. I love, we do it with self-talk all the time. Sometimes clients will say, I have self-talk, where I say to myself, but I say, well, what do you say to yourself? Oh, I don't know. No, what do you say? Go inside. Do it right now. You're about to go for the job interview. What's the very first thing you say? Oh, yeah,
I don't deserve this or something.
I don't deserve this.
Yeah.
Right. And I learned this one, all ways you can do it, but I'll give credit to Tony Robbins for this. He'd say it sexy. So it completely changes the entire context. So instead of saying, oh, I don't deserve this, say, oh, I don't deserve this. Oh, yeah. We're like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Say to yourself, you're such an idiot. Rawr. And it's absurd.
Yeah.
Right. And it's stupid. And right. But what it does is it totally, bam, it interrupts the pattern. Yeah. And you can't access the next step like you usually would. Because you're so used to, ingrained to say, oh, it's her again. It's her again. Instead, say something funny. Say, can't be her again. Oh, she gone. She gone. So now she gets a picture of the small and dark in the corner. And then she says to herself, she gone. And then maybe you say something different. You interject a new sentence that you normally never say, like, my husband loves me and I love him. And then after that, that leads to a positive feeling in the heart space instead of a grapefruit feeling in the gut.
Yeah.
That's kind of a more, I don't know, maybe long-winded example of what you might do. You systematically change each step and then rehearse it. Jason, over and over in your brain, you rehearse it again, you close your eyes and walk through those steps. Step 1, change the picture, small and dark in the corner. Step 2, say, oh, she gone, in a dumb accent, in a dumb tone.
Yeah.
Step 3, say, but my husband loves me and I love him. And then feel the feeling of love in the heart, and then open your eyes. This is actually a really important step. You'd open your eyes, and what that does is it ends the cycle. It makes it one repetition. It's as if you just lived that experience for real, right? Because the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's vividly imagined. Then you close your eyes and repeat it exactly again. Do that 5 to 15 times in a row. You'll be shocked. The next time a ding comes in, all of a sudden you might, on autopilot, go through the new process instead of the old one.
Wow, that's really valuable. I love it because what we know about the brain now is how plastic it is and how we can literally rewire our brains by changing our perceptions and how we see something, right?
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So this must be clearly powerful with fears, right? Super powerful. In terms of
that's what I do every time. I used to have a fear of public speaking, and I've spoken, I don't know how many thousands of times at this point in my career live, and I have a radio, my podcast Driven Entrepreneur is coast to coast on 16 AM FM stations.
Yeah.
So I have people all around the US and literally all around the world in 140 something countries hearing my voice. And it used to freak me out. Like, I was very scared of going in front of people.
Mm-hmm.
My first seminar had 6 people, including my parents, and I was a nervous wreck. But I used NLP. I actually literally used this stage fear, right? The fear of public speaking process on myself. And I changed that process. Same way as I just gave the example with a woman. You can do it for yourself for literally any negative reaction you have.
Yeah. So I get nervous when I'm in front of people. This is great. So if we use me as an example, once I'm in 5 to 10 minutes, I'm cool. But it's the anticipation, right?
That's what most speakers say too.
It's that buildup. So what's, for me and others who have some of that fear, what's a good tip for us? Do we need to walk through kind of we got to go to the moment of like the pattern? Okay, there it is. And then we basically insert new images and sounds.
Hey, let's do it right now. You want to do it right now?
Yeah,
you want to get rid of it forever?
Sure. Hell yeah.
Why not? Right. And we'll do it live on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Because the thing is, and I did that too forever. 5 minutes is what it takes. And the problem is everybody's judged you in the first 5 seconds. And then you have to kind of rebuild trust or rebuild your credibility is probably the biggest thing, you know?
Yep.
They're like, oh, I like him, but if you don't look confident, if you're not owning it in the first few minutes, you gotta earn that back.
Yeah.
So when you walk off second one, hey, and you actually feel good in your own skin, you don't have to do any comfortingness. It's amazing.
Great.
So let's do this.
Okay.
When you're going to speak, give me an example. You're going to speak on stage.
I spoke. I got a good one. I spoke in front of my students. My students will appreciate this. I did a spoken word poem in front of my students in May, and I was like shitting my pants right before I did it. I was so scared. I was like, my heart was pounding, and I was just,
So go back right now. I want you to go back before you were scared. Back when you actually felt good. When did the scared start? Was it when you were home thinking about it? Was it when you were in the back of the room and they were about to call your name? Was it when you walked on stage?
Right. Scared started, like with a thought, knowing that I was going to do this tonight. And I'm sitting in the kind of audience. Everybody's taking turns doing some little thing.
I love that. You're sitting in the audience.
Yeah.
And you're sitting in the audience, and at one point you feel great, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm feeling
because
I'm
you're just
fun,
hanging out
watching
in the audience.
Other people. Yep.
And go back right then, right now.
Okay.
And close your eyes. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. But Jason, close your eyes.
Yep.
Go right back to that time, right back to that moment when you still felt great. Float down your body, look through your own eyes, see what you were seeing, hear the sounds, and really feel the feelings of being in that room and watching other people and feeling good. Got it?
Okay.
Good. And now, what's the very first thing that happened that allowed you to start feeling scared? Was it something that you saw, something you said, or something you heard, or something you felt?
I think it was a thought that was like,
what was the thought?
I'm going up. I'm soon. My turn is in like 2 turns or something.
I'm soon.
Yeah, I'm soon.
Okay, so you said something to yourself.
Yes.
And right when you said something to yourself to remind you that it was going to start, what's the very next thing you did? Did you make a picture in your mind? Did you hear a sound in your mind, or did you get a certain feeling or emotion?
I got a certain feeling or emotion. Heart rate picked up. Heart rate speeds up. Yep, energy's kind of going up in my body.
Good. Yeah. Now you did exactly what everybody does. So let's stop and pause time. I want you to stretch that timeline out in front of you. Imagine it, stretching it out.
Okay.
Because things happen in between that split second.
Yeah.
So I want you to go back to the moment you're sitting in the chair, everything's fine. And then you say, oh, I'm going to go up soon. Between that, saying that, what's the very next thing that you did inside that led you to feel something? Did you make a picture in your mind? Did you say something else to yourself? Did you hear sounds of something?
Right after I said I'm going up soon?
Yeah.
So I had the feeling.
Yep.
And then after the feeling...
No, before the feeling.
Okay, before. Okay, yeah, stretching out time. So...
Because words don't make a feeling. So right when you said I'm about to go up, what's the very next thing that happened inside? Stop time right there and tell me, what did you do the moment you said, I'm going up soon? Did you make a picture of yourself? Did you make a picture of the audience? Did you hear something from the room?
Wow. Okay, so I'm stretching out time. I'm going up soon.
And you say it, I'm going up soon. However you said it, say it just like that.
Yeah.
What's the very next thing that happened?
My throat tightens.
Your throat tightens. Good.
Yeah.
And the moment your throat tightens, what's the very next thing that happened? Did you get a picture in your mind? Did you say something else to yourself? Did you get a certain feeling or emotion, or did you hear something?
So far, it sounds like, so what I got so far is I'm going up soon. I got tension in the throat, and then I have the feeling going up, the kind of heart rate speeding up. That's what I've got.
And then the heart rate speeding up.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't think, you have no picture in your mind? You didn't imagine anything?
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Okay, good. So then once you felt the feeling, what's the very next thing that happened? Once the heart rate started increasing, what's the very next thing that happened that allowed you to feel scared? Did you make a picture in your mind? Did you hear something? Did you hear their voices, their boos, their cheers? Did you see yourself or hear yourself doing it poorly?
I heard myself talk like I hope I don't make a mistake.
I hope I don't make a mistake.
Yep.
And then after you said, I hope I don't make a mistake, how did you say that? Say it the way you said it in your mind.
Oh shit, I hope I don't fuck this up. I hope I don't make a mistake. I want to get this right. I want to nail this.
What was the very first thing you actually said? Say it again. You say, "Oh, I'm up next." Your throat starts tightening. You start getting
I don't want to make a mistake.
Coming up.
I don't want to make a mistake.
I don't want to make a mistake. And after you said, "I don't want to make a mistake," what's the very next thing that happened? Or did you know that you were scared then, or did something else have to happen for you to be scared?
No, I'm scared then. Yeah.
And now I'm scared. Okay.
Yeah.
So open your eyes.
Uh-huh.
So here's what I want to do, right?
Okay.
So we just started identifying, and we could go on. And what I love to do in a session is I would do this with one or two other contexts, different types of things.
Uh-huh.
And you'll find that it's slightly different in different contexts, but there's always a strategy pattern that you'll do the same every time. Because the way you do fear is the same every single time.
Got it. Okay.
The way you do passion is the same every time. The way you do everything is the same every single time as far as the structure
automated.
goes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Right. The way you make a decision to buy anything is the same, whether it's a pencil or a jacket or a house. People don't believe me, but it is. Sometimes there's more content or there's different things you evaluate, but it's always the same.
Yeah.
So let's do this. So go ahead and close your eyes and teach me how to do this now. Pretend I'm going to be you for a day. I'm a temporary agent from the temp office. I got to replace you, and no one can know that I'm replacing you. All right. If we get caught, we're all busted. It's terrible. So I need to do everything you do, and I need to show up a little bit scared and get comfortable for the first few minutes. So tell me again, what's the very first thing I have to do if I'm going to start feeling stage fright?
It's funny flip. You're going to need to sit in your chair and think that you're going soon. Okay.
So how do I think that? Do I have to say it, or do I just think it?
You have to think it.
Do I say it in my head?
You could say it in your head like, I'm going soon.
I'm going soon. And then what tonality do I have to use?
I'm going soon. And
how do I say it?
Quietly, quietly in your head. Just
quietly in my head.
I'm going soon. And you kind of say, shit, I'm going soon. That's what you say. Shit, I'm going soon.
Okay. So let me get this right.
You're kind of mumbling it.
Okay, so the very first thing I have to do is I have to sit in my chair, and I have to sit up straight and go, I'm going soon.
No.
Man. Is that what has to happen?
No, you're more like mumbling it. And you're like,
wait a minute. Are you sure? Maybe I misheard you. Can you try that on? Let's make sure that doesn't work, because I don't want to mess this up. So are you sure I couldn't sit up straight and say, man, I'm going soon? Try that on and see if that doesn't work.
Man, I'm going soon.
Can you still, you can still get the feeling, right? I don't want to mess it up too bad.
Yeah.
I don't want to forget how to do this.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a feeling there. Yep.
Okay, good. So I can still do that. Okay. So the first thing I do is I go, man, I'm going soon. Yep. And the very next thing, what do I have to do next in order to feel stage fright?
Tighten your throat.
Okay. So then, let me get this straight then. So the first thing I do is I sit up straight and go, man, I'm going soon. And the next thing I need to do is then I tighten my throat.
Yep.
And I let that knot go down my throat, and I let it go into my stomach, and then I poop it out. And it goes right out my butt, and it falls out the chair, and it goes down my pant leg. Is that right?
No.
Is that not what you said?
No.
Wait a minute. By the way, if you're listening, if you can get your client to laugh at their problems, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Maybe I messed that up. Can you try that on?
Yeah, I'm seeing what you're doing with me. This is great, because you're interrupting the pattern, right, in the strategy.
Oh, I'm just trying to learn, man. I'm just trying to learn.
Okay.
So what's the first? So go ahead and try that on. Make sure it won't work. I don't want to mess it up right now.
It's pretty hard to tighten up my throat right now.
So because the first thing I do is I sit up straight and go, man, I'm going soon. And then I get, my throat tightens, and then it goes right down into my esophagus, right down to my stomach, into my colon. And then I poop it out, and it falls down my leg. and it rolls.
Yeah,
And then someone
onto the
steps on
floor.
it.
Right.
Is that what happens?
So, yeah, sure.
Try that out.
Yeah.
Okay, when I do that, can I still get it? Because I want to remember, right? I don't want to mess it up.
Let me see if I got it so far. Man, I'm going soon. And then I'm imagining it, going into my body, and I poop it out, and it's going down my pant leg, and then I step on it. Or someone else steps on it.
I hope that can still work. I don't want to mess this up. I'd hate for it to be caught feeling confident, aren't you? That'd be terrible. What do I do next after that?
Okay.
So
and then
go, man, I'm going soon.
Yeah. And then you just allow these like
down.
intense feelings to go up, and they feel like fear, and they go kind of up.
Okay. So then I get this feeling. It's like a butterfly. And in which direction does it turn? Does it move in a direction?
Yeah. It goes up toward my head.
It goes up. Okay. And then does it turn a clockwise or counterclockwise at all? Or does it only go up?
It just goes up.
Okay, good. So the very first thing I do is I sit up straight and go, man, I'm going soon. The next thing I do is I tighten my throat and I let that tight go right down my esophagus, down to my stomach, my colon, and I poop it out and it rolls out my pant leg. And after someone steps on it, then I get this feeling that goes up and then it washes right back down all the way down to my toes. Is that what happens?
No, but I like that.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Man,
didn't quite
I must
get
not
it.
be listening well. I'm sorry. Can you try that? Try that on. Make sure I'm not messing this up.
Okay. So the feeling
Too
goes
bad.
up, and then it washes right down over
And it
me.
washes
Just
right
feels
down.
really good. Just washes all the way through me.
And then if I do that, I can
Waterfall.
still feel anxious, right?
No, it starts to change.
Oh, no.
Yeah, man, you're fucking this whole thing up.
I don't want to mess this up too bad right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it irreparable because if you can't access this anymore, I'd be in big trouble.
Okay. Yeah, no.
So now,
Yep.
once you walk through that, open your eyes,
Okay.
close your eyes, and I want you to walk back through that one more time, just the way I described it. I want to make sure I'm really, really getting it.
Okay. Man,
So-
I'm going soon.
And then I feel the tightness and that throat goes right down, all the way down to my butt, and I poop it out. And there's a nice, weird little, I don't know what that looks like, but it's pretty gross. Rolls off, someone steps on it, and then I get this flood of emotion going up, and then it washes right back down, all the way down, and drips out my toes.
Yeah.
And what's the next thing I say to myself? Makes me feel great.
I hope I don't make a mistake.
So I say to myself, I'm going to crush this.
Yep.
Is that what I say? Try that out real quick.
I'm going to crush this.
Now say it like you mean it.
I'm going to crush this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I'll feel good at that point, or bad. I mean, I don't know which way.
Yeah, great. You just
So
turned
all
it
I want you to
around
do is do that and walk through that process. That was starting to loosen the grip of the problem, right? That was great.
Absolutely.
And then walk through it and imagine, close your eyes and literally do that all the way through until you feel like confident to go up, and then open your eyes, close your eyes, and then run through it again. And do that like when we finish this, if you got time, if we do it like 15 times in a row, it should take you all of 1 minute, right?
Uh-huh.
Because it's like a 4-second process.
Yeah.
But if you do that, what'll happen is you've interrupted the old pattern and you've laid a new road on top of it, and it'll be hard to get back to the old one because it's so destroyed.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We got to play around with that. And guys, remember, you can do that with any negative response in a relationship, going to the gym, eating salads, whatever. You can use it with anything.
Yeah, great. Okay, cool. Well, I'm aware of the time. We got to wind down. So Matt, kind of a final tip for the listener in terms of just, you've been married, 11 years, you said?
Coming up on 10, together 11. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. You teach relationship stuff in your way, NLP stuff. You help people, expand their careers. What's kind of a parting tip that you would want to make sure this group of people who are into relationships, what would you want them to know?
Yeah, man. For me, it's changed over time. The most important thing that we're living out today is what I call family teams. And specifically with marriage with kids, but certainly all types of relationships, you can live and use this principle. Family team is that me and my significant other and or any other immediate family like kids, etc. We are a team. So we're Team Brauning, and it's the three of us. And we all believe that we were put here, that God put us here for a reason, and that there's work that we're supposed to do side by side, shoulder to shoulder. We're doing this together. I would be a little more insane without my wife, and she'd be a little more insane without me.
Mm-hmm.
There's parts of my personality that she needs, and there's parts of her personality I need. Like we talked about conflict and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So number one is installing a belief of, why are we here together? Is there a reason? And this might be counterintuitive to what a lot of people are going to believe, but I don't believe the purpose of relationships, marriage, etc., is love and happiness. I think it's a lot bigger than that. I think the purpose, and if we can really access what's the purpose,
Mm-hmm.
what's our mission in this relationship together? Why are we put together, and what are we to do? What you'll find is when times go up, it's easy to feel loving and happy. But when times are down, when you are fighting or there's conflict, or even everything's great with you, but you walk through loss, through grief, through hardships, through losing a job, through money being down, whatever it is, you'll find that you might not feel as much love and happiness in those moments. Don't make the mistake of thinking that love and happiness is gone, and make the mistake of thinking that my relationship has changed. A great long-lasting relationship is about being together for a reason through the ups and the downs, and staying on mission.
Yeah.
If you stay on mission, you'll go through hard times together. You'll go through amazing fun times together. You'll go through love. You'll go through anger. You'll go through it all. But you'll go through it together, and you'll become stronger, and you'll be a great example to people around you, because you know what your mission is here on earth.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Awesome.
Not a big deal. Simple.
Yep.
Changed my life though.
Team, family. Totally. I agree with that. And one more, I got to sneak in one more question. So I always ask my listeners or ask my guests, if I had a room full of 1,000 young adults, high school kids, let's say, and I could only give them one piece of advice for their relationships, and you were going to whisper in my ear, and you only really had like 1 or 2 sentences, what would you have me tell them?
You know, I would probably sum up what I just said, which is the purpose of a relationship is not happiness. The purpose of a relationship is a higher mission that you're meant to do together.
Beautiful.
Never forget that.
Yeah. So cool. Okay. Where can people find you, Matt?
Man, I'm all over social media at Matt Brauning, M-A-T-T. It's B-R-A-U-N-I-N-G. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever you want. Everything's there at Matt Brauning. You can also go to evolutionseminars.com with an S, evolutionseminars.com. And you can find out more about, NLP training's coming up. I think I have a 9-part speed reading video course on there. It's just NLP applied to brain function. That's pretty cool. Not about relationships, but it's there and it's yours to have. So evolutionseminars.com. And then subscribe to the podcast. It's The Driven Entrepreneur. Jason's been on it. It was an awesome interview. So you can hear me grilling Jason about some relationship tips and ideas and really get a whole different perspective. And there's other great guests. I've had people like the founder of the Ritz-Carlton on there, the first woman to climb Everest from both sides, and on and on. I have just really, really cool guests that you can get some insight into the mindset of a great visionary. And it's The Driven Entrepreneur, anywhere you find podcasts.
Killer. Okay. Thanks again, Matt.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay, awesome. That was really fun and kind of intense there for a minute, being coached. It's always, I kind of wish we had another hour so I could really do that frame by frame. He was coaching me in kind of a fast forwarded sort of fashion, but I was feeling different. That was cool. I am going to practice this. Okay, mark my words, because I don't like feeling that sort of nervous feeling. I'm going to reframe the whole thing. And so thanks, Matt, for that. So here's your action step. Pick something that Matt and I covered there and do that exact process that he did. Okay, you can do it with a friend, you can coach each other, or do it with yourself. It can be a triggering thing with a partner, an ex, that text message example. It could be something like that. It could be you get on the phone with your mother, or it could be a coworker at work, and when they say a certain something, you have this whole thing you go through. Try to rewire that and see what happens. See if you can NLP yourself. Okay, that's your action step. I know that's kind of big, but I think that's really doable, right? Identify it, try to change it using what Matt talked about. All right, and then certainly go check him out at evolutionseminars.com. All right, and you can go at Matt Brauning all over social media to find him. And those will be in the show notes, okay? Thanks, everybody. And remember, we have an upcoming workshop here in Boulder, Colorado, okay? So if you were not able to attend our 9-month training called deeper, the deep psychology of intimate relationships, fear not, we have a 2-day workshop here in Boulder, Colorado. It's actually Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, November, I believe, 8th, 9th, 10th, but let me just double check that. Anyway, look on the website, okay? Find it. It's right around there. It's that weekend. Okay, it's either Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I can't remember. How reliable, aren't I? So save that date, and you're going to be able to bring a friend for half price probably, and we may offer some scholarships for that as well. So there's no excuse to not come check us out, meet me in person, and have your life changed through interpersonal intelligence and some of the present-centered relationship coaching that we do here at the Relationship School. All right, should be fun, should be intense, right before the holidays to get you ready and primed for the family drama that's coming. All right, okay, talk soon. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Relationship School fans and Smart Couple listeners, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, all right? Do us a favor, subscribe, share one of these videos with a friend, all right? We want to help the planet get their act together around relationships, and you are one of them, so thank you.